Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Agent Podcast. I'm Bo Billington. I got Sean Everett here. Sean, thanks for joining. Happy New Year.
Hello, Happy New Year. Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Good to see you as well. Last time we connected, I was actually on your podcast, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We spent about an hour, and it seemed like it was about 15 minutes, to be honest with you. Just a good flow.
Time flies when you're having fun, you know?
No, it does. It was definitely a thought-provoking conversation. We'll be sure to add a link to this podcast. But I'm super excited about this one in particular because you've recently started a podcast, and of course, I want to learn. I want the audience to learn about you as well as kind of what your podcast is about. But you've figured out a way to really kind of optimize and hack viewership in a very, very, very short time. And so that's really what I want to kind of base today's conversation around, figure out how the hell did you do it? And is it really going to be that easy to replicate? And hell, maybe my team and I will take this to the to the war room, if you will, and see if we can replicate and then compare and contrast our notes with kind of what you've shared. But
Yeah.
prior to doing that, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and then let's talk a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, sure. Brief background on me, probably, I don't know, 20 years of experience in business. I've been advising and operating companies all the way up to the Fortune 1 and everything in between. And so I've been sort of on the bleeding edge of emerging tech a long time ago, which now is like just tech. So it's kind of like you got to be out in front in software, and it's like it catches up to you really quick and those cycle times are coming faster and faster. So it makes your job harder, but also not as hard because technology always changes, but humans never do. I found myself swinging back on the pendulum the other way. But yeah, my specific expertise is product management, growth strategy, operations, and been a former founder and helped other founders and yeah, just build, grow, and exit companies. And I also do some diligence on product and technology stuff and value creation for private equity companies at the moment of M&A. In and around that. So yeah, sort of this full life cycle and flywheel of build, grow, exit, build, grow, exit, build, grow, exit, and on until the cows come home.
Well, as a fellow entrepreneur, I consider that God's work. Like people in my situation need people like you to kind of help provide guidance and get us moving and get us grooving. So that's great to hear. And what about your podcast? What's the name of your podcast? How long have you been doing it? And then we can jump into the meat and potatoes here.
Yeah, the name is Ingenuity. And I started that I think, right after the first week in August of 2022. And it was a hypothesis test, and we can go into the details of that. So it's only been, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 months, something like that. And I'm at, I think, 85 episodes, but the cadence of that has changed over time. So yeah, I can talk about that as well.
Yeah, so 85 episodes. That's interesting to me because I've been doing this for like a year and a half, and I think I'm like at 30, right? I mean, I'm trying to kind of get into a better cadence myself, better rhythm, and what I understand that's kind of critical to viewership and getting eyeballs on your content. But that being said, what I found really interesting is you did a case study, which again we'll put a link to. But in less than 2 months, you went from 0 subscribers, so that's zero goose egg, to 14,000, and you did so with a zero budget. Which is insane. So a couple more data points. Your RSS subscribers went from 0 to 14,000, and YouTube views 0 to 35,000. Like, teach. Like, how does one do that? Because I haven't found a way to kind of hack the system or optimize. And of course, I'm that's the goal. I'm not trying to be the next Joe Rogan, but I would love to have more eyeballs on my content because ultimately that's my company's brand, etc. So, how'd you do this?
Yeah, well, let's talk about mindset first and approach. And so for me, the critical problem I kept seeing in the startups and companies I was working with was a fundamental one, which was how do we get more organic growth
Yes.
instead of paying for that growth? So, like ads, right? And so it's a fundamental question. We needed to reduce our customer or our cost per acquisition, right? Per user, per customer, whatever. So, over the summer, I was thinking about it and I was like, all right, well, if I'm, quote, as good as I say I am, or like I know what I'm doing, then what I want to do is figure out, do I have the stuff in order to like practice what I preach, right? So I said, all right, let me set up a hypothesis test and design this thing, and let me do like some difficult metrics. And if I can do it, then, and I do it all by myself, no one else involved. If I can do it, then I have proven, at least to myself, that there's some kind of value there, that I'm on to something. And really what it came down to was, can I trust my instincts? Because I think that is such an important piece that you need as an operator, as a founder in a big company, because it's business is moving faster and faster and faster. So if you have to stop and second guess yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that is a curse. And so you need to be able to trust your own instincts built on experience, skill, whatever the case may be. So that was the approach and mindset. So I wanted to do something which was in a highly competitive environment, let's say social media, zero budget. So you can't pay for sales team, marketing team, you can't pay for ads, you can't pay for anything basically. You have to do it all yourself. Now, granted, you can use tools like an iPhone, a MacBook,
Sure.
Dropbox, Figma, which is free. So a couple software tools. And I found you could do all of this for free, but at the highest end, maybe $100 per month.
Okay. Which is still a drop in the
Okay.
bucket for the
So then
value
it was like,
getting.
yeah, right. So then it came down to, okay, I'm still operating businesses. So I need to be able to do this thing in like 1 to 2 hours a day. Okay. So those were the requirements that I gave myself. And then the last one, the North Star metric was, let's say, subscribers, viewers, whatever. And I wanted that growth curve to be as steep as possible. So basically, the premise is your growth rate is your investor's return rate. So keep it as vertical as possible. So that was the starting point. So then the question is, okay, those are the requirements. Now, how am I going to do it? So I had been on social media. I've designed some social networks and some media formats. So I had a hypothesis, which was, all right, can I look at all the short form content, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram Reels, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then podcast. And I wanted to test every media format. So not only every social media and distribution channel, but every media format. So text, audio, video, image, people, etc. And so what that meant is I had set up a hypothesis test where I'm testing every media format, every social network, to figure out the combination that grows faster than others. I even tested like music. And on the podcast side, because I wanted to get a number of episodes quickly, I had a hypothesis as well that, and I had this 10 years ago, which was, we're not going to spend an hour on a call for every podcast. I need some that are quick hits, a minute, 2 minutes, minute and a half. And I also knew that the human face was highly engaging rather than just other types of content. It just is from a human perspective.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
so that was the foundation. I'll pause there. Any questions?
Well, no, I mean, a lot of this is resonating with me. So, as a founder myself, like analysis paralysis is a real thing. And so I think, trusting your instincts is critical. And we've all been caught in that situation. Also too, I've got a keen interest in keeping advertising spend low. And so organic growth is really important. And kind of like my singular focus for this year is, how do you flip the funnel? Right. So we've got campaigns where we're, doing, outbound and direct touch, but I really want to put myself and my company in a position where people are coming to us, and not to sound opportunistic, but we can kind of cherry pick those A and B clients, which is just a better partnership for us as well as kind of the companies we work with. So that really resonates. So yeah, no, I'm super engaged. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? Is like lower customer acquisition costs. So, okay, so then what I did is I just go is the mindset. So here's what I did. I just started creating content and publishing and putting it out there. And I even changed my professional services website a little bit to be more like consumer friendly. So I started publishing music playlists on Spotify and Apple Music. I started creating little thumbnails that I would use as an image. And my other premise was, the internet is so 2D flat now over the last 5-10 years that I wanted to use 3D objects. So I was using 3D models in my imagery. And then I was also including principles as the as the intent of each episode. So, a principle is basically an instruction. And then below the image or below the 3D model, I would include a link to the landing page or to the website. In my case, it was my app. And so then I would publish those episodes in video format to TikTok, Reels, whatever. And then because it's not a watermark, it's embedded in the image and the video itself. It can't be removed, can't be overlaid. If other people try to strip that content and use it for themselves, it's embedded in the video itself. So if you try to like overwrite someone else's brand on top of yours, because I take copyright and intellectual property very seriously because it lasts 170 years.
Sure.
Like our kids.
Right.
So I take it very seriously. So then it was just like publish as fast as I can at the speed of thought almost. So I would have an idea. I would go outside and I would do this on my morning walk where I'm walking my dog, and I would point the phone at my face and I would talk for a minute on a subject. And then I just edit it quickly and then get the audio file, set up my RSS feed on my own site because I wanted everything to be owned by my brand and my company. And then I distributed that everywhere else and drew everyone back. So it's like this great, it's like a flower petals. You're always bringing people back home to the beehive, if you will. Instead of, because here's my thing, the social networks, 3 billion people, they are distribution channels. They should not house or own your content. You own your content. You're the creator. And they are just a dumb pipe, if you will, that connects people together. But the content is the most valuable part of it, not the pipes connecting the piece together. So use the back of the distribution channels that already exist and bring the bees home to the hive, so to speak.
No, I love the
I'll pause there.
analogy, and that makes sense. And I feel like there's a revolution that's taking place right now about taking control of your own content, right? And going back to a homepage and RSS feeds and all this jazz and taking it from Facebook and et cetera. You get the point. A couple of questions. What type of content was this? Because I thought it was all business, but then you mentioned like some playlists, which is fine. But was a combination of just kind of like who Sean is at a 30,000 foot view. So you've got music, you've got business, you've got personal, you've got kind of this array of different content that you're pushing out. I mentioned, kind of the type of content. So is it personal meets business meets pleasure, all the above?
It was almost entirely focused on professional services. So business, specifically software. And I just put it in a format and a feeling that it was like a consumer feeling, only the content itself was very B2B professional services focused, which was another hypothesis that says, business content puts everyone to sleep, but why?
Yeah, it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to. I mean, we're all humans, whether we're at home, we're watching a YouTube video, like in the industrial enterprise. It's not like we magically change who we are. So just make the content more human, more engaging, more. The other thing I'll say is that's one of the reasons that a lot of the short form episodes, because I also did the long form hour-long podcast thing, the short form 1-2 minutes, I did it while walking my dog to prove that there wasn't a script. It was completely off the top of my head. It was no filter, no mask. And that was the other thing. So, from an approach, you have to know your stuff if you're going to do this. Like you have to stay in your lane or your circle of competence, which is what I did. I didn't branch out into things I didn't know. So it was all like product management stuff, like strategy stuff, organizational design stuff, startup entrepreneurship stuff, things that I had been living and breathing for decades. So it just kind of comes out and you just need a moment for it to come out, and then you capture that and then you publish it out. And I think that ultimately was the secret, was things people maybe hadn't heard before, or like in such a quick bite-sized chunk that they could just capture it. And it started spreading pretty pretty from there, I think.
Yeah, and I think too, like walking your dog or just kind of shooting from the cuff, that humanizes people. I think we talked about this on your podcast, but I've pretty much stopped editing mine, because it's inhuman to not screw up. I mean, it happens, right? So a couple more questions I have. So you mentioned that you created 100 pieces of unique content set up 30 distribution channels, which is crazy. But then you also mentioned that you had one piece of content that was 2 seconds long and got 20,000 views.
Yeah.
Like, what could possibly be 2 seconds long? I mean, did you say, "Hey, this is Sean. I'm a product manager extraordinaire," or like what?
Yeah.
What in the world? Those are insane
Yeah.
numbers.
Well, the other thing, because I've been in emerging tech, I started playing around with how I messed with my video editing. So I would create an image with a 3D static image in there. And then I would cut through it and do like an actual overlay of my face, which was
Mhm.
reality. So I believe it's like I was playing around with augmented reality concepts in a podcast medium. And so the 2 second one on video, I mean, you can see all of the content on my podcast on Ingenuity. If you go to the website, you can
Sure.
view all of every episode from the beginning with the text, audio, video, etc. But if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see the other stuff, which isn't necessarily always included. And one of these was a 2 second clip. I took a photo of my neighborhood, and then it was just a house with this sort of beautiful sunset. And then out front of the house of it, I just popped my face in there doing something crazy.
Mhm.
And that was it. And I just published it to YouTube Shorts. And like it just took off because it's crazy. I mean, this is the thing about trust your instincts. Like if you have some zany idea you've been thinking about, especially as we move into like the AR 3D world stuff with
Yeah.
digital and real combined, just do it, push it out there. And like 2 seconds, 21,000 views. Like, I mean, that's distribution channel, but also unique and different kind of content. So
It is.
just do it. Just be respectful of other humans. Don't hurt other humans' feelings, and you'll be okay. That's your guardrail.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I like too how you use like you're using YouTube, but also YouTube Shorts. Sounds like you're also on TikTok. I personally have stuck to one channel, and that's typically LinkedIn. Well, actually two, LinkedIn and YouTube. But candidly, I
Mhm.
think my goal is to really kind of start leveraging the different distribution platforms that are out there because I'm only hurting myself by not taking advantage of the tools that already exist. So I think that's really interesting. And again, I
Yeah.
like too how you're talking business, but you're also kind of taking a real human approach. You're not in a white shirt with a tie on. Not saying that you're inarticulate, but like it's okay to mess up and you're being authentic, which I think is really what people are looking for these
Yeah.
days, especially with all the noise out there. So that's man, that's awesome. That's I really appreciate
Yeah.
the share. Any other advice for budding podcast hosts that are out there that are trying to really, get that scale?
Mm. I think the mindset is because there was a period where I went 14 or 16 days straight without a break, and it was all day, every day, just working, and it didn't feel like I was working. And that's because it felt like play. It was my fascination. I was messing around with ideas. It was like a kid in a sandbox.
Yeah.
And I think if you approach your work in that way, there's some magic that comes out. And that magic is what the audience is desperately searching for. And so if you try to like make it too professional, you lose the magic.
Yeah.
And like as you said, I was in a cutoff because it was 100 degrees over the summer. Like I wasn't in a collared shirt, and it's like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm going to run inside and put on a collared shirt and record a podcast. Like that's just not real. So
Right.
I think you just have to come as you are, and that like really connects. And the last thing is just find that fascination and that magic, and cool things will happen because that's your differentiator. And then people will be like, oh yeah, like that's Bo, that's the guy that's talking about like talent on a totally different wavelength. And we got to talk to him because he's talking about something I've never heard before. And like it's just different, versus like we're a recruiter. Like, come on,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you're not that person. So
Sure. No,
like,
I
yeah,
think you're
family,
trying
the
to make
whole
it
thing.
highly relatable. I actually, this was on LinkedIn before the holidays. I found it's about 2 years old. I found a kind of a blooper reel of myself doing like videos where I was trying to be so professional. Like it took me 2 hours to record a minute and a half because I just kept screwing up here, there, and the other. And I posted on LinkedIn, just said, screw it. What the hell? What do I have to lose? And it literally, it went viral. I don't recall
Yeah.
the actual numbers but it's still out there and it's crushing. And I think it's because I was able to laugh at myself, not take myself too seriously. And B, it also shows that we're all human. And that's
Yeah.
what people want to see, especially in a business setting. And I agree with your point about kind of the recruiter. Like this is not the sexiest space. And there's a lot of stuffy individuals. And kind of my goal is to bring, a new take on recruiting and the talent industry in general. And part of that starts with being a human. So,
Yeah.
man, that was cool, Sean. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining. Thanks for kind of sharing your knowledge with my audience. And I'm going to try to put some of this into play. I mean, sincerely, and I'll report back to you with some results and some metrics.
I love it. Yeah, just keep the magic going. Like we can be a lighthouse for everybody, you know? So yeah, I'm here for it. I love to see it. I can't wait to see what you do. Like I'm a
Well,
subscriber. Like let's
yeah, no, I
go.
appreciate that. I don't know if it's going to be so crazy, but it's baby steps. You know what I mean? I grew up with Facebook, but I was never on Facebook. I'm not a social media person. It was so hard for me to get on a LinkedIn. So I'm like, every year I'm getting bolder, getting older, and getting smarter. So trying to put myself out there and grow
I
up. When I
like
grow
that.
up, I want to be Sean Everett. That's the goal.
Be careful what you wish for. But I like that. Older and bolder. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I may write that down. But it's funny in parting. The thing that I like what you mentioned first. You said a kid in the sandbox, and that's what another kind of initiative for me in 2023 is to figure out like how can I regain that fun and that energy that I had when I first started my company. And it's easy to lose
Yeah.
it. It's so easy,
Yeah.
especially as we age. I'll be 43 this year, and it's really my goal is like have fun again, like break
Yeah.
stuff, be bold. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the perspective, and thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, for sure. We are stronger in the broken parts. So scar tissue is there for a reason. Like share the scar tissue, you know?
No, I
Yeah.
like that.
I love
Yeah.
it. Cool, bro. Great, man.